I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers went into Washington, D.C. and gutted out a 28-27 win. We break down what led to that Russell Wilson cooking and whether or not the Steelers are for real at 7-2. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. More on them later. Steelers fans, it's a victory Monday as the Pittsburgh Steelers came in and a really strong, really convincing win in 28-27. And look, it went down to the wire, needed a lot of things, but this was a true team win, in my opinion. You had the offense coming up in big moments when you needed them, overcoming their own mistakes, overcoming some questionable calls. The defense had some letdowns here and there, but when the chips were down in this game, did they deliver? And we're going to talk about them, but the Commanders finishing this game with a punt, a field goal, and then with good field position twice, they have to punt the ball twice and then a turnover on downs. This Steelers defense got the job done. But make no mistake. To me, the story of this game and the story of what this team could be comes from Russell Wilson and what he's doing with this offense. Now, Russell Wilson's numbers by himself not immaculate, not, prime Patrick Mahomes numbers, 14-28, 195 yards, but 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and the 1 interception was basically a punt in that situation. But Russell Wilson getting the job done in this game several times when they absolutely needed them. Steelers hover around 50%, just under 50% at 7 of 16 on third downs. But you look at what they were able to do, how they were able to convert in this game. And to me, that is a big story here. Russell Wilson throwing his first touchdown pass to George Pickens. It was one of those plays where you need a quarterback who's going to put it in the area for George Pickens to go get it in the end zone. Pickens with another insane catch. That guy's an alien. He's not from planet Earth. I don't know what it is about him, but he gets the job done. Then they get the ball in the red zone again. And this time it's Pat Freiermuth. Russell Wilson did miss Pickens, I think, on the second down play. But on the next play, they drop a really good play. Van Jefferson throws a legal screen, just kind of stands there, makes no contact with any player. Pat Freiermuth wide open, catches the ball, touchdown. Then as the game was rolling on, I really thought also the Steelers offensive line started to really lock in on the run game. They were plowing holes open for Jaylen Warren. And then unfortunately, Jaylen Warren fumbled at the 1-yard line when it looked like he was fighting to get in. Gene's territory, the NFL said that the play should have been ruled dead, but Steelers had to find a way to fight back. The Steelers defense gets them the ball back, and Russell Wilson delivers with a strike as the Commanders sent an all-out blitz, left Mike Williams in one-on-one, the new receiver they traded for from the Jets, and he catches that ball deep down the sideline for a huge 32-yard touchdown that after the extra point put them up 28-27. The Steelers defense then held the Commanders. We'll get into the defense in a bit. But to me, again, I go back to Russell Wilson and the several times you could just see what he is forcing defenses to have to honor when he's on the field. You get a one-on-one with one of your best players, he's going to find a way to get it to them. Did that with George Pickens, 5 catches on 7 targets for 91 yards and that touchdown. Mike Williams only got 1 target in this game, but boy, did it come when it counted. And Mike Williams also said on that play, that's a play that's normally designed for Calvin Austin, that Calvin Austin ran that all week in practice, and that when Calvin Austin was brought out, he was taken out of the game because the officials in the booth saw that he took a head hit and they wanted to check him for a concussion. Calvin Austin seemed fine, and I think he is fine at this point. We'll get to Alex Highsmith's injury. That does not look fine. But Mike Williams going in, running that same route, and for them to be able to connect the quarterback on his new team playing in his third start for the Steelers, Mike Williams and his new team playing in his first game ever for the Steelers, and it all coming together, just a spectacular play from this offense. And again, finding ways to win even when you're struggling at times. They came into this game And listen, there were, we won't get too deep into the officials, but there were definitely some questionable calls as far as why and when certain things were called when the Steelers were starting to pick up momentum, and things that didn't swing their way. But again, good teams and great teams overcome that. And that's the question that I think the Steelers face now. Are they a good team? Can they become a great team? I think you are a good team. When you win 7 out of 9, you're 7-2, you're a good football team. What determines if you're great is if you keep building on that and you keep building and you find those consistent things that you're able to do. And then even when you don't do the consistent things you do well, you find ways to make up for them. And I think the Steelers have done that several times this year. Sticking with the offense here, the run game kind of was here and there. Najee Harris didn't really get going. 21 carries, 53 yards. Did get a touchdown. Did get it done in the red zone. But the Commanders clearly putting an emphasis on stopping him. Jaylen Warren was the guy that got going in this game. It was good to see him back healthy and active. Just had that unfortunate fumble right at the goal line that could have cost the Steelers big, but the Steelers defense made up for it, and then the offense cashed in the very next play. And it's funny. You look at this Steelers. I think they scored 3 out of their 4 red zone possessions. Ended up with touchdowns. This is a team now that's finding a mode of consistency. That's finding its way to score. It's finding bread and butter moments where Russell Wilson's saying, "Hey, I'm getting my one-on-ones. I'm taking them. Hey, they're backing off. They're respecting they're respecting our receivers and not giving them one-on-ones. We're running the football, and then you're finding your plays where you're able to grind opponents down, but also hit on your chunk plays. And now you're putting teams in that guessing game, that very guessing game that David Harrison, the host of Locked On Commanders, said was going to be the problem if the Steelers got it going in this game, and they did just enough. And I think that's where the Steelers were able to make their hay in this game, was to find answers there. And look, it wasn't perfect. Russell Wilson still missed some passes. He threw an interception on a play, and there were times that he could have been better. And the offensive line could have blocked better at times. But again, 28 points in a road environment game, in a big game against a good team, a Washington Commanders team that still, I think, could win its division, and even at 7-3 right now, they're playing well. But a number that I put out there on my Twitter account at Carter Critiques, this is now 3 starts for Russell Wilson, and since he started, they have averaged 30.3 points per game. Now, again, that don't mean that's going to hold all season, and 3 games is a small sample size. But that's a better sample size over 3 games than I think the Steelers have had in a very long time. And Russell Wilson is doing just enough, and this is what we said all along. All they needed was for Russell Wilson to just do the little things here and there, make the right reads, give the Steelers playmakers a chance, and you could see how dangerous they are and how dangerous this offense can be at times. And I think that is something that needs to be talked about. I want to talk more about how this offense can overcome these moments and what this team is, as well as what's going on in defense and moving forward with how serious this team can be. All here next on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Drinks. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or agonizing second overtimes, which is why we've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot. With a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for superfans like you, those fans who are the first in the parking lot and are last to leave. We see you over at 5 Hour Energy. You know what else gave me a bit of feel this week. The Steelers, seeing all those Steelers fans in Washington, D.C. with the loudest "Here we go Steelers" chant I have ever heard in a road stadium from TV. I stayed home to watch that game, but that gave me a ton of fuel to get ready for this episode, knowing that, hey, there's probably a lot of those Steelers fans listening to this very, very show. So if you've ever experienced something like that, you can feel the energy that Fan Fuel from 5 Hour Energy is going to give you on game day. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you stay fueled throughout this season. It's available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. We're also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick just more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with any injury insurance policy. Your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. And now on Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as making 4 correct picks. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly when playing just $5. That's code LockedOnNFL to receive a $50 bonus for just playing $5 on Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Run your game. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. I want to dip into a few other things here. I was really impressed by how Russell Wilson kind of helps everyone lock in. And it's not just about Russell Wilson, but Mike Williams to be able to come in and make that kind of a touchdown, game-winning touchdown grab the way he did. He adjusted to the ball in the air, was able to win early in his route, get to the right spot, and know where to expect the football. That's the kind of stuff that I think this Steelers offense has needed so badly. And it's something that we talked about all last year, the year before that, all this summer. The Steelers needed a leader on offense that could get everyone to understand, hey, this is the difference between winning and losing. This is what consistent success looks like. This is what it's going to take to get to the result that you truly want. And I think that right now, the Steelers are starting to find that more and more in these situations. We've talked to guys like George Pickens and Calvin Austin. We didn't get a chance to talk to Mike Williams yet. He spoke this past week at the Steelers facility on a day that I was busy covering Pitt. And then he also spoke after this game when I was not in DC for this game. But when you look at what Russell Wilson's done, the other receivers have talked about they work so much with him to get things done. And Mike Tomlin minimizes, says, everyone works a little bit extra. But Calvin Austin, George Pickens have talked about no, it's a little bit different with Russ. He's expecting us to know what shoulder to look over here, what shoulder to look over there, and where to expect the ball, and he puts it there. And there were just some great throws from Russell Wilson in this game. There was one sideline pass he had over a cornerback into the breadbasket of George Pickens perfectly, and then George Pickens gets an insane toe tap. George Pickens continues to push himself into the conversation as one of the best receivers in football. If you don't think he's that already, I think you're out of your mind. But I think what's really good about this offense is that you're seeing them come together. You're seeing them find identity. You're seeing them find success and believe in each other. And that's part of what Russell Wilson being in the middle of it is helping everyone do. When in the run game, when it's not working, they can find other ways to hurt you. They can get involved Pat Freiermuth, they can get involved Calvin Austin, they can get involved Jaylen Warren still on a check down. And when they're taking away the check down, because if you go back and you look at that Mike Williams play, Jaylen Warren helped play a part in that. Now, earlier in the game, there was a really good play where I think it was like 3rd and long, and Russell Wilson was in the pocket. Washington sent a blitz at him. He recognized it, checked it down to Jaylen Warren. He was left with a lot of space between him and the closest defender. He turned it into a 26-yard gain, moved the Steelers' chains, and I believe that led to their first touchdown. I think that was happening on the George Pickens touchdown drive when they went up 7-0 early in the game. Then, if you go back and you look at that Mike Williams touchdown, similar play, Commander sent an all-out blitz. This time, the safety makes sure to run up on Jaylen Warren to go stop him from being the guy. And this time, when he does it, that leaves open Mike Williams deep, and it's just him against the corner. Mike Williams beats his man, and that's just a ball that Russell Wilson puts on the money there. That is what can make this team dangerous, is that they hit you in so many different ways throughout the game that you have to honor one or the other, and it gives you Russell Wilson a chance to catch you in your guessing game as far as where you're going to go. That's what this offense always needed. Now, again, they're scoring 30.3 points per game in their last 3 games, in their first 3 games with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I do not expect that rate to maintain for the rest of the season. I think that there's going to be some times where things are a little bit harder. They'll have some struggles. But I do think that they can hover maybe closer to 26, 27 points per game with Russell Wilson at quarterback if this keeps up, because I also look down the stretch and I think there's a lot of vulnerable defenses coming down the line, including that Ravens defense. It's coming to Acrisure Stadium next week. I really think that there's a chance here for the Steelers Steelers offense to put some exclamation points on their work as this season rolls on and we get into the AFC North schedule. I do think that there's a legitimate chance for that. And listen, Washington is not an elite defense, but they were a solid defense. They were allowing just 21 points per game going into this game. Which I believe ranked just outside the top 10, if I'm doing my counting right here. 1 through 5. Yeah, they were actually ranked 11th going into this game, allowing 21 points per game. That's ahead of the Packers, who had one of the more heralded defenses, ahead of the Niners, ahead of the Texans. So they were a decent defense, and the Steelers were able to put up 28 points on them in this game. And let's also remember that, the Steelers, the offense may have gotten more points in this game had James Pierre just caught that fake punt on 4th down. It was a beautifully drawn play where they checked into it, where it's just a thing where, hey, punt's designed to have certain checks where if there's a certain alignment, hey, we're going here on this play. Miles Killebrew throws a perfect pass to James Pierre. He just dropped it. If he catches it, he gets a first down easily. The Steelers are moving on their second drive, and it probably takes the wind out of the sails for the Commanders early. They probably don't get that early touchdown with Austin Eckler. It was a brilliant check to have in place by Danny Smith, and it just didn't work out because James Pierre dropped the ball. But if you look at that and you look at how the Steelers were able to find their consistency late in the game, they were able to move the ball. Again, if it wasn't for Jaylen Warren's fumble at the goal line, probably have 2 touchdown drives to end the game, because the Steelers scored there, got the ball back, and then scored. The Steelers would have scored there. They got the ball back, and they might have been able to score again, though they might have been running the clock out at that point. But either way, again, it all comes from the balance that what Russell Wilson and what Arthur Smith, got to give him a ton of credit too for the game plan and the play calls that are getting these guys open and getting them their chances. They're clicking right now. Mike Williams seems like a fit. If he gives this, and that's what I said when they traded for him. He's not there to get 100 yards in a game. He's not there to finish the season with 900 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. He's there to be that deep ball threat that gives you that occasional, hey, they left him in one-on-one, take the shot, and just happens that so much in this game, in this first game with him, that his one-on-one was the game-winning touchdown reception. And again, when you keep finding that balance and you keep hitting on that balance and you keep that going and involve everyone in the offense, that's going to get you bigger points. And when you get bigger points with this defense, you're going to find wins more often than not. And let's be real. This defense, they came out and they had a good game. The Commanders also had a good game. I thought this was a well-contested game by 2 really good teams that are leading their divisions. But this is one of those games that if the Steelers come out like they did in the most of their games the last 2 years, they probably lose this game. And that's where they're different this year. I won't say that they would have lost this game with Justin Fields, but the Steelers weren't I don't think that they were finding as many answers in different parts of the team when Justin Fields was at quarterback. But still, either way, even if Justin Fields would have won you this game this year, I think it's clear that this is one of those games that would have been out of their hands, and they would have been just way too far behind to have to try to catch up. Had this been, over the past couple seasons, the past few seasons, since Ben Roethlisberger kind of fell into his old age, then he eventually had to retire. That's a really good sign that this Steelers team is a contender. And I think this Steelers team is a contender. They're going to go up against the Ravens next week. That'll be an all eyes on Pittsburgh situation. Get to Acrisure Stadium. If you ain't got tickets yet, try to get them as fast as you can. They're probably going to go high, and it's probably going to be a nuts environment next week. That's going to be truly bonkers, in my opinion. I think the Steelers and Ravens, that could be the game of the week. It's a rivalry of the week for sure. And I think that Steelers fans have every chance to kind of make that a crazy environment. That if the Steelers pull off that win, all of a sudden they're 8-2, a game and a half up on the Ravens, and feeling really good heading into Thursday Night Football the week after that, playing the Cleveland Browns. But we've talked a lot about the offense. I got to talk about the defense because despite they did give up 27 points, that's more than their average, and certainly there were some questions here and there. I thought they turned in some really important moments. We'll talk about those moments here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you that today's episode is also brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. You've heard us talk about FanDuel Sportsbook all year long. And, well, normally we give you odds, ends, and lines as where the Steelers are going into the week. But seeing as the odds and lines, those lines have not been set yet as the time I'm recording the show right after the game, let's look at some Steelers Super Bowl futures right now at the Steelers at 7-2. If you look at FanDuel right this very moment, it may change by the time the show publishes, but their Super Bowl odds to win the Super Bowl are plus 2,800 right now. If you're a Steelers fan and you're feeling the vibe from this win, you could drop something small on that and end up with a big payday if the Steelers become that team to finish the deal this season. You could start your season with a big return also on FanDuel by making a smaller bet where you can make a bet of $5 or more, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first bet of $5 or more wins. That's $150 of free bets today to new customers if you hit on just a $5 bet or more, only on FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sportsbook today. That's FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here today. I've talked a lot about the offense, exclusively about the offense, basically. Let's switch to the defense because they deserve credit in this win as well. The Steelers were able to go into this game. They were able to find answers when they needed to, especially late in the game. And listen, there were some rough moments. Now, I think everyone will kind of agree the first touchdown that they allowed was just a tough spot. Steelers went for it on 4th and 16 in their own territory, deep in their own territory with a fake punt that was there, just not caught. It was a call that completely caught the Commanders off guard. Just James Pierre, apparently his hands were also off guard. And then the Commanders were able to punch it in from there. But outside of that, they gave up. You look at the possessions they gave up. They gave up a touchdown towards the end of at the end of the first half, where there were, I thought, a few questionable defensive penalties that kind of aided the Commanders there, but they gave up a touchdown there. And then on the first possession of the second half, the Commanders, I think, recognized something the Steelers were doing, took advantage of that for another touchdown drive. So then all of a sudden you had at one point what looked like it could be a problem because the Commanders had scored 4 times in a span of 5 drives with 3 touchdowns, a field goal, and a punt. And there was some big questions. Man, maybe this defense is not it. Maybe they're about to get smoked here. And then after that, the defense truly turned it on. The defense forcing a 3-and-out with no yards the drive after that. They did allow a field goal towards the end of the third quarter where Commanders got great field position at the Steelers 42-yard line, but they held there. I thought that was a win of a drive to hold them to a field goal. But then even with the short fields after that, the Steelers defense was able to come through. They respond. Russell Wilson throws an interception. They allow 1 first down, force a punt after that. Then after Jalen Warren's fumble, so back-to-back turnovers by the Steelers offense in this game. And what do the Steelers do? They force back-to-back punts. That fumble, they did not allow the Commanders to get even any space, and they gave the offense plenty of time to be able to get the ball back. And I think, to me, that's where that was something that was really big for the Steelers offense. They didn't have to go to a 2-minute offense. They could run a 5-minute offense and work the clock a little bit. And eventually it led to that touchdown. And then when the chips were all down and everything was on the line, the Steelers defense had another short field to defend because the Commanders were getting some good returns on special teams in this game. They started at the 35. They got a first down. And then on fourth down, Jaden Daniels throws a pass right at the marker, and the Steelers are able to stop Zach Ertz short of the sticks in a very, very close play. But hey, it's a game of inches, and the team that wins the game of inches is often the better team. And that led to the Steelers being able to run out the clock at the end of the game with Russell Wilson using a hard count to make that happen. So all that being said about how the game progressed, you look at the things that the defense did well in this game. Now, I won't make any qualms here. Joey Porter Jr. I thought had a really rough game for the Steelers. He was getting toasted by Terry McLaurin. He was getting called for penalties. There was 1 or 2 penalties I thought were a little bogus, but by and large, he needed to be better in this game, and I think he will be better. He's been very sharp at different points of the year. He's a young player still figuring it out. But I thought this was an emergence of a game from Patrick Queen. He's had some games this year where I'm like, I need to see more from him. He looked really active. I think he had at least 2 tackles for loss in this game, maybe even 3. He finished with 2, also broke up a pass on a third down, led the team with 7 tackles, was really solid there. Deshaun Elliott, another 6 tackles, another tackle for loss. I thought that was with Preston Smith immediately making his presence felt. He had a sack in this game, 3 tackles overall, 2 tackles were for loss. Larry Ogunjobi making a difference. Cam Heyward, this might be. I know we do our grades usually on our Tuesday episode, but Cam Heyward's probably getting a 3-star game, not a 3-skull game, a 3-star game with 2 sacks. That dude just continues to show you why he was signed to an extension. He's truly a bad man at the defensive side of things. But it was also the other guys that did the little things here and there. I thought there were a couple plays. Beanie Bishop, we blew up a wide receiver screen that kind of stalled a drive. He was pretty solid there. Keanu Benton forcing a holding play that was there. TJ Watt even didn't do a whole ton in this game. He had 2 quarterback hits, didn't have a single tackle, did have a pass breakup, but he forced what should have been a holding call in the end zone on a safety after the Jaylen Warren fumble, but it wasn't given to him. The Steelers made it not matter at the end of the day. But I thought that he was still an impact player, even when he wasn't an impact player on the stat sheet. You could see him causing some problems there. Now, there are going to be big questions about the Steelers moving forward because Alex Highsmith suffered a late ankle injury, and it was reported by Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com that Alex Highsmith was on crutches in the Steelers locker room. So that's not a good look. You got to hope that he can come back. He looked very much in pain with an ankle injury, couldn't put any weight on it. We'll see what the diagnosis is and how long he's out for, because you're presuming he's not coming back from that this upcoming week. And it might be sometime. He already missed a few games earlier this season for the Steelers, and that could be a big thing there. But again, I think a big part of this is when you step back and you look at the overall picture of what the Steelers did in this game. They held Jaden Daniels, who a lot of people were putting in the Rookie of the Year conversation, and I think he still is. He's a good quarterback, but they held him just like Russell Wilson to 50% completion rate, 17 of 34. Also similar to Russell Wilson, they held 202 yards. Russell Wilson 195. But the difference, they never let him get in the end zone. 0 touchdowns, didn't pick him off, but they were able to keep him out, and they basically said, hey, the only time you're going to get in is when you're running the ball inside the red zone. And they did give up 3 rushing touchdowns. But again, as I said, going into this game, this was one of the best rushing teams in football. And the Steelers defense held the Commanders to 60 rushing yards in this game on 22 attempts. That's an average of 2.7 yards per carry. Coming into this game, the Commanders had averaged 5 yards per carry. That's 5th best in the NFL. They also averaged 163.9 rushing yards per game. That's 3rd best in the NFL. So you held this team way under their average and more than 100 yards under what their normal game expectation as far as running the football. And you kept Jaden Daniels without a touchdown. To me, that is just a big sign for what this Steelers defense can do. And this is also a game where they didn't have one of those splash crazy turnover plays. TJ Watt didn't go ballistic in this game. They didn't have 3 interceptions or things like that. These are situations where I think that it's really strong when they are able to find answers overall. Also, I'm just looking at this now. I think this was it was the fifth time this year that Jaden Daniels has been held without a touchdown. No, excuse me, the third time this year he's been held without a touchdown, and the first time that he's been held without a touchdown in a loss. When you look at his numbers on the season, so you hold Jaden Daniels in check. You keep their run game from taking over the game. And sure, there's mistakes here and there. Joey Porter Jr. needs to be a little better. There was a missed tackle from Minka Fitzpatrick that I thought was costly on a big play for Terry McLaurin early in the second half. But again, when the chips were down and the Steelers needed their defense to be a great defense, I look at those all the last 5 drives where they force a 3-and-out, giving up no yards. They defend a short field and let up only a field goal. They had the Steelers offense gives up 2 turnovers. Those lead to quick punts to get the offense the ball back. And then when the offense gave them the lead, they defended the field well, forced a turnover on downs, gave Russell Wilson the chance to end the game. That's complimentary team play there. That's something that Mike Tomlin talks about, what you need from him. And I think that's the thing that you look for from a Steelers team, a really good Steelers team, to be able to do that against a good team, a talented team that's going to that's going to probably make the playoffs, maybe even win their division in what's a really competitive division. You know, they're up against the they're up against, you know, the Eagles, who are smoking the Cowboys right now, and that could be a good race. But Mike Tomlin, I think he has this team locked in. He has this team focused. After the game, he thought this was a great quote. He said, "They're a hot group," talking about the Commanders, but we want to be the firemen. That's some tough stuff right there. That's some classic Mike Tomlin isms right there. But I look at this team, and I think they are feeding off that energy. They're feeding off Russell Wilson. This defense knows what it's supposed to be. Even when it makes mistakes, it bounces back. Same thing for this offense. That's what good teams do. That's what great teams do. I'm not saying they're a great team just yet, but I think they are on their way. And if they keep doing this for a few more weeks, I think you'll have to start putting them in that great category as one of the AFC leaders going into the playoffs. They're already 7-2, 9 games in. Now their AFC North slate starts. They play the Ravens at home. We'll break down more of this when we get a look at all 22 film on the Tuesday episode, and we put our grades out there for our Stars and Skulls episode. We'll also have lots more to break down when Mike Tomlin talks on Tuesday. We'll also, try to get our guests going, and it's going to be a big week. It's Ravens week, but hey, Steelers fans, enjoy this feeling right now. I think that's something that Steelers fans often forget. It is important to remember to enjoy the good times. And right now, your team's just coming off. It's a victory Monday. They beat a good team 28-27, and they're 7-2, sitting atop the AFC North and feeling good about it. You should feel good about it too. Be sure to check out all of our future episodes here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Back tomorrow with grades on the Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.